Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.
And I listen to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast.
Imagine I had myself on the screen at the same time as Kemar Roach came on the screen. Well, you know, sometimes you get the technical skills wrong when you're trying to make your video bang, you know, but it is what it is. You're used to the start by now. My name is Machel St. Patrick here at one half the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, and welcome back for another episode, Call It What You Want. This isn't about the West Indies performance so far in the first test versus Zimbabwe. Yes, I should make brief reference to it. I think we'll do a live show at the end of day 4, so look out for that. But obviously, first things first, big up Tay Chanderpaul, unbeaten double century on debut. Big up Captain Craig Brathwaite. I think it was 182 or 187 that he got. And obviously, West Indies are trying to push for, I don't want to call it an unlikely victory, but it'll be a very good victory if they can bowl out Zimbabwe twice in the remaining 2 days of the test match. Obviously, the Zimbabweans are 114 for 3 at the close of play on day 3. We've got 2 days of exciting cricket ahead. And when I say exciting in so much as can West Indies try and pull off a victory. You would assume that Zimbabwe will pass the follow-on. Which will mean that West Indies will likely have to bat again no matter what. So it's going to be quite intriguing to see how and in what stage the game gets to on the final day, day 5 of that first test match. But I'm not here. I just wanted to briefly mention that because people click on this video and be like, so what, you're not going to mention the test match at all? This video isn't actually about the test match, but I wanted to make brief reference to it. Obviously, I should probably make brief reference to the West Indies women as well. They've had their first warm-up game. They lost, I think, by, was it 25 runs or was it 35 runs in the first warm-up game? I'll probably do a video on their warm-up games at some point. Remember, they kick off their tournament, the World Cup, the T20 World Cup, next Monday, the 13th of February is our first game, and we start off against one of the heavy favourites for the competition, the English. So look out for some videos on that in due course. But this video is actually about the first round of the domestic championship, the West Indies Championship. First round ended on Sunday. The second round starts on Wednesday. So I felt that this was the equidistant point to kind of do a video looking at round 1 and looking ahead to round 2. You can see on the ticker tape below. You can follow Caribbean Cricket Podcast at Carib Cricket on Twitter or Instagram. Like, share, subscribe on all of those platforms, but more importantly to this video, we're on the road to 5K. Thank you for joining the live. If you joined the live video at the time of recording, it would have been yesterday. Since that live video, we've gained, I think, about somewhere near, about 70 subscribers. Might even be more than that. So thank you to anybody who pressed subscribe after watching that live video. I think that video is on about 6K at this moment in time. So thank you for anybody who came through on the live when we actually recorded it and anybody who's since subsequently watched it on the replay. If you'd like to support the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, head to www.patreon.com/Carib Cricket. And you can support us for as little as £2, 2 yen, 2 rupee, 2 Jamaican dollars, 2 Antiguan dollars. Any whatever your currency is, you can become a patron of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast because we have no sponsor, people. It's your support that keeps us going. So if you'd like to get involved, you can do so that way. And if you'd like one of our brand new spanking Caribbean Cricket Podcast maroon international caps, I've only got 13 remaining. They've been so successful since I put them out for sale. There's only 13 remaining. Send, I think, 4 off to the United States a couple of days ago. 1's gone off to Japan. So we're doing international distribution as well. So if you're interested, get at me. Hit me up in the DMs and I'll see what I can do in terms of getting you one of our international maroon caps. And you can rep the West Indies as well as the podcast with pride. Anyways, let's get into it, people. Let's get into it. This video is all about the West Indies Championship. Let me bring this up on the screen. So you should be able to see on the screen so far. I've called it the story so far. Obviously, in round one, if we look at the top game on the screen, the Windward Islands Volcanoes played Trinidad and Tobago Red Force, and you can see that that match was drawn. Windward Islands took it down to day 5. Trinidad were never going to chase the total that they needed. It was always about would the Windward Island Volcanoes be able to bowl Trinidad out. But Jason Mohammed put up a fantastic rearguard innings of 70 odd. Let me go and find the precise number. Bear with me, people. I always forget the exact numbers. Jason Mohammed scored 79 of 201 balls to put up a rearguard knock to ensure that Trinidad held out. And it's worth reminding people that Vikash Mohan was unable to bat. So actually, the Windward Islands only needed 2 more wickets to win that match, but they were unable to do so. We'll come back to some individual performances in a moment. And that game obviously was in Grenada. The games in Antigua, Guyana Harpy Eagles went to the top of the table after they dismantled the Barbados Pride by 100 and let me see how big the margin of victory was. It was 183 runs. So they absolutely dismantled them, posting 371 in their first innings, and Barbados were always up against it after that. Shane Dowrich went off the pitch during the Guyana innings. He didn't come back to bat, field. Well, he doesn't bowl, but he didn't come back to bat or field at any point. So Barbados really only actually had 10 play. Well, they had the substitute fielder, but you know what I mean. They only had nine wickets to bat with, so to speak. So they were always up against it. But full credit to Guyana, anyways, for bowling them out for 94 in their second innings and winning by 183 runs. And then in the final game, the most thrilling of them all, the Leeward Island Hurricanes fell 1 wicket short of beating the Jamaica Scorpions. A lot of credit has to both go to, and we'll get into it in more detail in a second, Rakeem Cornwall for a fantastic all-round performance. And for the Jamaicans, you had Abhijay Mansingh, who batted till the end. He was unbeaten on 62 of 208 balls. Him and Patrick Harty saw it out to the bitter end to ensure that the Scorpions did not lose that match. I mean, they had their target was 268 runs. That was always going to be unlikely. It was always about could the Leeward Island Hurricanes bowl them out. They had 82 overs to do it, but the Jamaica Scorpions held on for the draw. For those who don't know, if I just bring up, I was sent the exact standings earlier on, so let me just read it out to people. So the standings as we go into round 2, the Guyana Harpy Eagles are top with 20 points. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Force are second with 10.2 points. Windward Island Volcanoes are third with 8.4. Leeward Islands Hurricanes are fourth with 7.4. Jamaica Scorpions are fifth with 6.2. And the Barbados Pride are last with 4.8 points. Do not ask me how the points are actually distributed. I haven't actually found out the exact rulings of batting bonus points and bowling bonus points and points for victories, points for draws, etc. I'll endeavour to try and find out how Cricket West Indies are actually distributing the points this year, because it seems to change year on year. So I will endeavour to find out. But what we do know is that Guyana Harpy Eagles are top by 9.8 points at this specific moment in time, heading into round 2. Just so people do know, in terms of the next round of fixtures, bear with me. Ugh. It's in my diary. None wouldn't you know. So for the next round of fixtures on Wednesday, in Grenada, the Windward Island Volcanoes will play the Guyana Harpy Eagles. And in Antigua, the Leeward Island Hurricanes will play Trinidad and Tobago, and Jamaica Scorpions will play the Barbados Pride. So that will be the second round of games. What I wanted to do, though, for the remainder of this video is just talk through some of the standout performances thus far in the competition. So I'll take this one off the screen. So the batting performances thus far. So what I've done is I've collated the top 5 run scorers and the top 5 wicket takers after round 1. It's a bit harsh because there are some standout performances that I've not included in this just because these players haven't managed to hit the top 5. So let me just talk on those players first and foremost. So I want to just highlight some players who aren't in the top 5 in runs or wickets, but deserve a mention all the same. Just because I've seen some kind of level of interest. I mean, Jeremiah Louis, if we go with the Leeward Islands versus Jamaica game, Jeremiah Louis batted at number 8 and scored 78 of 170 balls. That's kind of gone under the wire, mainly because Jeremiah Louis is supposed to be an exceptional frontline bowler, but we must acknowledge that knock, which helped the Leeward Islands recover from 186 for 8 to ultimately post 260 all out. We should mention Marquino Mindley. He took 3 for 28 in the first innings of the match bowling at the Leeward Islands Hurricanes. Leroy Lugg hit a 79 off 83 balls, of course, off 83 balls. Leroy Lugg, thus far in his career, seems to only know how to bat one kind of way, and he was able to do that to exceptional effect in the first innings for Jamaica. Paul Palmer hit 47 off 96 balls. In terms of the Leeward Islands bowlers, obviously Rakeem Cornwall's the standout, but we'll get to him. But Sheeno Berridge was back for the Leeward Islands. Good to see him back. Playing for the Hurricanes again, 2 for 25 off 10 overs. Colin Archibald, who's been kind of on the fringes and in and around West Indies A, 2 for 37 off 10 overs as well. When the Leeward Islands came back to bat, nothing really to speak about other than Rakeem. And again, like I say, we'll get to him. But Jamie Merchant for the Scorpions took 4 for 43 from 20 overs. So it's worth, again, he seems to have been around forever. And he's just very, very consistent. And like I say, alongside, although Abhijay Mansingh was the one who batted till the end, Jamie Merchant's all-round abilities, batting at number 7, his 47 helped or was key and part of that fight of taking the game right down to the wire and ensuring the Jamaicans did not lose. So there's some standout performances that don't come in my top 5 list that we should mention. Similarly, if we head over to the other game in Antigua, Guyana versus Barbados, names that I'm not going to go in any depth on, but worth mentioning. In terms of the Barbados bowlers, I liked what I saw from Jair McAllister. He bowled with a lot of zip. I thought he was very impressive. Akeem Jordan was as frugal as ever, 2 for 54 from 26 overs. Did I actually say what Jair did? So Jair, 3 for 43 from 18 overs. Chaim Holder with his off spin, 3 for 71 from 36 overs. When the Barbadian team came to bat, I mean, Shane Mosley hit a 65 opening. Remember, former West Indies opener, got that chance in Bangladesh in 2020. Although he didn't actually open, he batted at number 3. So he hit a half century. Shamar Brooks, who's back in regional cricket, hit a half century. Shamar Springer was 35 not out off 69 balls. I thought he was quite fluent. So he's batting at number 7, although we must remember that Shane Dowrich had retired hurt. So I don't know if Shamar would have been batting 8, actually, if Dowrich had actually played in the match. Obviously, Vasami Purmal, he passed 500 wickets. He was a standout Guyanese bowler, but worth mentioning, Kevin Sinclair, back in red ball cricket, 3 for 65 off 24 overs. Shamar Joseph, the pacer, 2 for 33 off 15. And again, when Guyana struggled when they came to bat the second time round, but they had such a big lead, it didn't really matter. But again, Akeem Jordan, 3 for 32 off 15 overs, ending with 5 wickets in the match. Jair McAllister only took 1 wicket in the second innings, but very frugal, 1 for 15 off 8 overs, economy of 1.87. And then again, the Barbados side was very poor. Sorry, I said Shane Dowrich didn't bat. He did actually come out to bat. Sorry, that's my fault. He came out to bat in Barbados' second innings. He got a duck, lasted 2 balls. But in that second innings, it was Niall Smith who led the way in blowing the Barbados side away. But shout out Runsford Beaton, who's back in regional cricket properly again, 2 for 11 from 8 overs. And then finally, in Grenada, the Volcanoes versus TNT. Again, if you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm just talking about some of the performances that aren't in my top 5, but they're worth just mentioning because these may well be players that end up in my top 5 after round 2 due to them carrying on their form. So Wimbledon Island Volcanoes batted first in that match. Sunil Ambris back in a lot of players back in regional cricket this year. Sunil Ambris 55 of 58 balls. Alec Athanaze 41 of 69. Let me just quickly say now, after predicting in January 2020 that that Tagenarayan Chanderpaul should have made or should have got to the West Indies team a lot quicker than he did, the new player that I'm now heralding is I expect Alec Athanaze to be in the West Indies test side within 2 years. If he's not, that will be a failure of selection. Now, some of you are going to hear me say this and say, but Mashi hasn't got the numbers yet to justify getting in and around the West Indies side. What I'm trying to tell you lot is that Alec Athanaze has already passed my eye test. He has passed my eye test that he is somebody worth investing in. So that's a free tip there for West Indies selectors. Let's see how long it takes them to jump on the wave and realize that he's already got the skill set that's worth putting a lot of time and investment in. Athanaze should already be going, whatever West Indies A tour takes place, I think they're going to Bangladesh, but whatever West Indies A tour takes place later on this year, Athanaze should be on it. Okay, so he's my next one to watch. But like I say, Athanaze 41 of 69. Tevin Walcott, remember the Barbadian who plays for Wimbledon Islands? He hit 87, not out of 100 balls. Excellent knock from him, batting at number 7. In terms of the TNT bowlers, worth remembering that TNT are missing Jaden Seals injured. Shannon Gabriel is on tour with the West Indies. Anderson Phillip is injured. So the top 3 seamers are missing for TNT, and I think that significantly weakens them. But that said, Terence Hines, he was expensive, but he stepped up to the plate, 4 for 72 from 13 overs. But Brian Charles, I call him a domestic stalwart, 4 for 46 from 17 overs. You kind of know what you're getting from certain bowlers in domestic cricket. When TNT came to bat, Amir Jangu getting his chance. A lot of players now getting their chances. Amir Jangu batting at 7, scored 86 of 143 balls. Tion Webster, somebody I've never seen as a red ball cricketer. We'll get to him later on, but 79 of 85. And Terence Hines, his all-round ability, batting at number 8, 52 of 64 balls. Okay. In terms of the Wimbledon Island bowlers, we'll speak about Ryan John later, but he was a real standout. When the Wimbledon Islands came back to bat the second time, again, we'll speak about Kamani Melius, but we must acknowledge Kavem Hodge, who's been on the fringes of the West Indies side. Again, circa 2020, around the pandemic, Kavem Hodge was in and about it. He seems to have drifted away from the squads in recent times, but is he somebody who should still be in and around conversations? He hit 80 of 195 balls. Alec Athanaze hit a half century, 51 of 95. And Sunil Ambris, back-to-back 50s, 55 of 50 balls. He was, 110 strike rate. His strike rate in the first innings was 94. So he was hitting them at a fair lick. So good to see Sunil Ambris back in regional cricket. Brian Charles, again, very on the money, 2 for 92 from 24 balls, the standout TNT bowler. And then, like say, TNT managed to bat out the day. Jason Mohammed, 79 of 201 balls, the lead in the rearguard action, alongside Tion Webster, again, another 50, 58 from 63 balls. And yeah, in terms of the Wimbledon Island bowlers, again, Ryan John kind of led the way. So no one else really that I want to highlight, because we'll get to Ryan John in a minute. So that was quite lengthy, people, but the whole point of me doing that was just to kind of highlight other individuals who aren't in the top 5 run scorers, aren't in the top 5 wicket takers, but it's worth just highlighting that there were some standout individual performances that's worth keeping a keen eye on for how they go in round 2. So someone like a Sunil Ambris, back-to-back 50s, it's worth seeing how he goes in the second round, because it could well be that by the end of the second round, after the Volcanoes play the Harpy Eagles, that maybe Sunil Ambris will suddenly be in the top 5 run scorers. But as you can see on the screen, the top 5 run scorers in round 1, Kamani Melius is leading the way at the moment. Let's give him the yellow jersey. 196 runs, largely speaking, built off the back of that 192 that he got in the second innings when the Windward Island against who did they play again? Against TNT, when they put up 440 odd for 4 or 5 declared. Now, it's worth mentioning with Kamani, I think people just have to be mindful. And probably this goes the same for Matthew Nandu, who's currently in second place with an aggregate of 142 runs. This is Nandu's first proper season in regional cricket. So I know people want to get excited. And I know people want to say that, well, look at Nandu's knock. He made, where's the innings? He made, let me find it again. He made his 126 off 337 balls, a Tej Narayan Shandapur-esque knock, a Craig Brathwaite-esque knock. And I hear people's excitement. And I know that from the previous Under-19 World Cup, people are already talking about a Matthew Nandu anyway. So I get the excitement, but I want us to just temper it a tiny piece because this is just his first season. Good on the Ute. There's been a lot of hype coming out of Guyana about him. Bases himself in Canada, I know. So good on the Ute for making a statement, particularly at a young age. But let's not hype the Ute too much, you know. Let's let him actually play his cricket. It could well be, I think Santoki and I spoke about this on the recent episode of West Indies on 99.94 DM. It'll be interesting to see after this round of this season of the West Indies Championship plus the Headley Week series. What does Nandu do next with his career? Does he commit himself, for example, to playing and being part of the West Indies Academy if he's picked in the next cohort? Does he commit himself to playing abroad to try and develop his skill set? So it'll be very interesting to see the next steps of Nandu's career, but I don't want us to overhype him. And actually, the same goes for Melius. Melius has been playing regional cricket, both Super 50 and Red Bull, since 2018, 2019. This is the first season where Melius has done something of real significance. Up until this year or this season, he's only hit 250s in regional cricket, whether that be white ball, CPL, or the Red Bull Championship. So again, I know people want to get excited. I know they want to say, yes, the talent is there, but let's temper it just a little piece. Let's let these players continue to develop. I know Kamani went to England to work with Toby Radford, but let's just let him go at his own pace. Let's not try and put too much pressure on these youngsters. In third spot, Tion Webster. Now, Tion Webster, on the other hand, I do want to big up quite significantly because Tion Webster, and those watching this who are like Trinidad and Tobago stalwarts and love their Trinidad and Tobago cricket. Tion Webster has been spoken about in my mind. I'm just trying to find, don't even know if I can find the stats that I want for Tion Webster. Bear with me, people, because I want to find something on Tion. Let me just see if I can bring it up before I continue talking. I might not be able to get him. No, I can't. So Tion Webster has been spoken about in my mind, he's been spoken about for at least 4 years, if not longer. Pollard's spoken about him. Bravo Senior has spoken about him. He's been seen as like a bit of an heir apparent in West Indies, certainly in TNT cricket. Like, this is the next kind of explosive batter that should be coming out of Trinidad and Tobago. However, despite all that, I've never truly felt that he's delivered on his obvious potential. Tion's 27 years old now, right? And here we go. I'm just bringing up Tion's career stats. Tion first played red ball cricket way back in 2016-17, played 2 matches for TNT, scored a century in that season, right? So way back in 2016-2017. He played 2 matches in that season, scored a century. The following season, he played all of the matches of the Red Bull season. He averaged 27. He scored a century again and 150. Tion Webster hasn't scored a century since 2017, 2018 in any format of cricket. When you pull his numbers, he's not had what I call a career-defining season probably ever in his career. And I mean, maybe some might say the 2020 CPL season, which was the pandemic one when it was a lockdown season. I think that's one where TNT didn't beat everybody. They won all their games. He was good in that season, in fairness. I think he had a good CPL season in 2020. But that's almost and actually the season before that, he played 3 matches in CPL for the Knight Riders, and he was all right the season before that as well. But that's almost my point about Tion. For me, he's been pigeonholed now as a white ball cricketer, but he actually started out as somebody who played a significant amount of red ball cricket. But I think, and I'd love somebody who knows Tion well enough to tell me I'm wrong, but I think Tion has focused on white ball cricket to the detriment of his red ball skills, which is why of all the people on this list, he's actually the most significant name that stands out to me. To see him, let me get the TNT scorecard again, to see Tion score 58 in the second innings off 63 balls. And that 58 that he got was at a time when he came to the crease, TNT were 94 for 4, trying to save the test match. By the time he got out, which what? So, I mean, don't get me wrong, when he got out, there was still about 26 overs left to negotiate. And yes, he was hitting a fair lick, 58 of 63, but it showed me that he can play or counterattack under pressure. In the first innings, he made, where is it again? Where's Tion? In the first innings, he made 79 off 85. So again, hitting at a fair lick. Now, obviously, I know what people are going to say. Mash, that's not sustainable in red ball cricket. And maybe that speaks to the fact that Tion is seen primarily as a white ball cricketer. But I had prior to his very early seasons in domestic cricket back in 2017, 2016, I hadn't seen anything from Tion that indicated he could translate those skills over to red ball cricket. So I have to rate it. I have to rate the fact that he's third on the run scoring charts thus far, 250s to start off the season, and let's see how he goes over the remainder of the tournament. In 4th and 5th place, I mean, everyone's talking about him. Abhijay Mansingh out of Jamaica, former Campion College student. Abhijay wasn't even supposed to play this match. He only played because of the medical situation that has probably ruled Alwyn Williams out for the remainder of the championship. But Abhijay did what any good young cricketer does. If you get an opportunity, seize it with both hands. And I mean, Abhijay, 2 back-to-back 50s. Which was significant in preventing the Jamaican defeat. In the first innings, he hit 56 off 177 balls. And that's more at batting at number 6, I hasten to add. And that's what I love to see. I love to see a crease occupation. I love to see somebody put a price on their wicket. No other Jamaica batter in that first innings batted more than 100 balls. Only Abhijay managed it, 177 balls, 56 runs. In the second innings, when Jamaica were trying to save the match, again, no other Jamaican batter batted more than 56 balls. Meanwhile, Abhijay Mansingh hit 62 not out of 208 balls. So we have to rate it. We have to rate it. We have to respect it. And I'm fairly certain that Abhijay would say this is long overdue. He's been putting in performances overseas. I think he's gone to Australia before. He's gone to England before. He's come back home to play for Melbourne Cricket Club, which I believe is his club in Jamaica. So Abhijay might well be saying, you know what? I deserve this. This is my chance to prove that. I don't know how many people know this. So Abhijay's father, if I'm not mistaken, has a role in Cricket West Indies, right? And I think for Abhijay, a lot of this is about also not for him per se, but I think for a lot of the doubters of Abhijay, he has to prove himself in and of his own right and not have people say, well, true say your daddy is da 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 da. The man's good within his own right. And I think this is good to see him feature on the top 5 run scorer list. And obviously we'll get to the bowling list as well. And last by no means least, Rakeen Cornwall. What can we say about Rakeen Cornwall that hasn't been said already? I feel like certainly at the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, we've said everything that we need to say, right? But Rakeen Cornwall, 85 off from 95 balls, batting at number 7 in the second innings for Leeward Islands, in their score of 241, the only person to hit a score of 50 or higher in that second innings. In the first innings, he made 29 off 73 balls. Okay, so that proves that he's not just a quick run scorer. He can occupy the crease as well, right? If I was a West Indies fan, I would be paying very keen attention to how certain players, I'm not going to call any, in fact, let's call names. If I was a West Indies fan, I would be paying very keen attention to how, I guess, more specifically, Roston Chase goes, more so than Gudakesh Motie. If Rakeem Cornwall is going to get back in this West Indies side, it's more likely to be at the expense of Roston Chase than it will be at the expense of Gudakesh Motie. I think at this point in time, you have to accept that Gudakesh Motie should be given a run as the primary spinner in the side. So now it's about, if Rakeem gets back in, he can only surely be competing with Roston Chase. Now, under no circumstances would I ever say that Rakeem Cornwall should bat in the top 6 for the West Indies, but that's the like-for-like replacement. And the way I bring this full circle as to why I'm making that point, one of the easiest ways for Rakeem Cornwall to get his way back into the West Indies side is sheer weight of runs. It's not wickets, because we already know what Rakeem can do with the ball, and I'll speak about that in a minute. We already know who Rakeem Cornwall is when it comes to wicket taking. So the way to force his way back into the West Indies side is, and I hope Rakeem listens to this, Rakeem, force your way in through runs. And that, I think that's the only way they can't ignore you. It's not the wickets, because that's your bread and butter. You'll done be taking wickets in every single match. So force your way back in with sheer weight of runs. And if Roston Chase doesn't perform for West Indies versus Zimbabwe and South Africa, then he should hold a drop and Rakeem Cornwall should replace him. So well done for Rakeem for starting off the season in the top 5 run scorers. And then lastly, just to end the show, let's end with the bowlers. And it's interesting that we've got one name and one name alone, which shows up in the bowling stats. If some of you are saying where's somebody like Mansingh, who also took 5 wickets, the reason why Niall Smith is there instead of Mansingh is better average. So I've ruled people out based on, so if they all got 5 wickets, it's who's got the best average. And that's why Niall Smith has got him. So unsurprisingly, top of the wicket taker list, Rakeem Cornwall. I mean, you can see Brian Charles in 4th place. And the reason why I miss out Ryan John and Veerasamy Permaul to jump to Brian Charles at number 4 is, and I want everyone to listen to this carefully, just answer this simple question. Who's the best off-spinner in the Caribbean? And let's just forget weight, forget size, just off-spin and wicket taking. Who is the best off-spinner in the Caribbean? The answer is Rakeem Cornwall. And all Rakeem Cornwall can do when it comes to wickets is just continue to mash up the domestic scene. Again, I said a couple of days ago, in fact, on the live, that we can't just go off numbers alone. You have to go off the eye test, right? But Rakeem Cornwall passes both of those. The eye test tells you he's the best off spinner, and his numbers tell you he's the best off spinner. So it's no surprise to me that we have our first round of the domestic championship, and Rakeem Cornwall's the only bowler who's taken a 10-for across all 10 wickets in a match. Okay, so he's starting hopefully as he means to go on. Although someone told me the other day that he might be flying out to Bangladesh. I don't know if there's any truth in that. So well done to Rakeem. Second place, Ryan John. I don't know how much people know about Ryan John. And if you're somebody listening to this show who's never come across Ryan John before, when West Indies won the Under-19 World Cup in 2016, there were 3 fast bowlers in our side. Actually, 4. There were 4 fast bowlers in our side who stood out. Alzari Joseph was the top wicket taker, 13 wickets at 14 apiece. Obviously, Alzari Joseph is now an established member of the West Indies Test side. The next highest wicket-taking fast bowler in that tournament for West Indies was, if you want to call him fast, was Keemo Paul. He took 7 wickets at 21 apiece. And obviously, Keemo Paul is a former West Indian international, had some injury woes, but hopefully he's making his way back. The next highest after that was Ryan John. Ryan John in the Under-19 World Cup in 2016 took 6 wickets at 22 apiece, and arguably was, I would say, at the time, bowled just a notch under Alzari Joseph. And then the next highest wicket taker, by the way, was Chamar Holder. When you think about those 4 names, interesting, isn't it? Alzari Joseph, Chamar Holder, who's already been capped by West Indies, Keemo Paul, who's already been capped by West Indies. That Under-19 team had a bag of man, a bag of man. Sorry, I'm now going off piece, but just to let people know, Shamar Springer was in that side. Jahid Gouli was in that side. Hetmeyer was in that side. Imlak was in that side. Carty was in that side. Odean Smith was in that side. Obed McCoy was in the squad, then got injured, but he was in that side. So a bag of men have come from that West Indies under-19 World Cup side, you know. But the point is, Ryan John was one of the key wicket takers in that tournament for West Indies under-19. 6 wickets at 22. Ryan John is now 25 years old. And unsurprisingly, because this is West Indies cricket, his development from that under-19 World Cup to now hasn't been smooth. It hasn't been plain sailing. But that's nothing new. That's West Indies cricket in a nutshell. A lot of the progress our under-19s make from being talented at youth level to senior cricket is often a stuttering level of progress. But it's been the hostility and pace, and more importantly, accuracy that Ryan John bowled with in that match against TNT was brilliant to behold. So in the first innings against TNT, John took, where is he? He took 14 overs, 5 for 18. And then in the second innings, when Windwards were trying to chase a victory, 15 overs, 3 for 27. So really and truly, I'm watching Ryan John. This may well be, I'm not saying he's been poor in previous seasons. He's been fine, to be fair. I wouldn't say he's been brilliant, but I'd love to believe that this might be Ryan John's breakout season. Okay? I'm just going to, just like I did with Tion Webster, let me just bring up, let me just try and bring up some stats. Right. So, yeah. So, just to show you, if I just bring up Ryan John's bowling stats, this is only his 3rd red ball season for the Windward Islands Volcanoes. In previous iterations of the red ball season, in 2019-2020, he played 3 games and took 9 wickets of 36. 2021-2022 last season, he only played 3 games, 3 wickets at 67. He's been more consistent when he's been playing Super 50. But even then, he's not been a consistent pick in the Windward Islands Volcanoes side. There's only been one tournament prior to this year's West Indies Championship where Ryan John could truly say he has been completely trusted by Windward Islands Volcanoes. And that was in the 2020-2021 Super 50 Cup, where he played 6 matches and he took 8 wickets at 31. Okay, that's the only, at 32 even, so 8 wickets at 32. That's the only time I can say that Ryan John can truly say, yeah, I was trusted by the Windward Islands to be part of that team. Okay, so that's why I'm saying maybe this is the breakout season for Ryan John. So he's definitely one to watch to see if maybe now he's starting to, I know it's just one match, but maybe now he might be starting to fulfill the talent he showed at the under-19 level. Number 3, Veerasamy Permaul, 6 wickets. I mean, what do you want me to say about Veerasamy Permaul? Much like Rakeen Cornwall, Permaul's going to just keep doing what he does. Over 500 wickets domestically. The only question I would put to people who are watching is, how does Permaul get back into the West Indies side? Because he's a left-arm bowler. Remember, West Indies have just selected Moulty and Warrican. So to me, that tells, if I'm Veerasamy Permaul, I'm taking that to mean, so wait, you lot ain't rating me. You're basically saying I'm now 3rd in the pecking order. So for those watching this, put in the comments below, how does Permaul work his way back into the West Indies side? How many wickets would he need to take to ever get back in again? Moulty's definitely the incumbent. But based on this squad pick for Zimbabwe and South Africa, it seems they're saying that Warrican is the backup. So I don't know. I don't know what I can say to Veerasamy Permaul to say this is your way back in. 4th, Brian Charles. I'm going to watch Brian Charles. I mean, Brian Charles, when West Indies A played Bangladesh A last year, Brian Charles was the chosen off spinner. The reason why I'm making this point is because when we went to Australia, we took Ruston Chase as our primary spinner. In the press conference, Desmond Haynes said, we wanted to take an off spinner. And I don't know if people remember the video I recorded at the time. And I said, if that was Haynes's rationale, that they wanted to take an off spinner to Australia and for whatever reason, the door was closed on Raheem Cornwall at the last minute, I said at the time, how comes Brian Charles didn't get picked? What made them think that Roston Chase was the next best off-spinner to pick? In my mind, after Raheem Cornwall, if you're going to call another off-spinner's name, you go to Brian Charles next for TNT. So for those of you who don't know much about him, when the next set of matches kick off, so a reminder that TNT will be playing the Leeward Island Hurricanes in Antigua, watch how Brian Charles goes and get back at me about what you think about his action, what you think about his bowling. Do you think he should be the next in line for an off spinner spot, right-handed off spinner, if Raheem Cornwall is basically barred from playing for the West Indies? And then finally, in position number 5, this video's been much longer than I thought it would be. Finally, in position number 5, Niall Smith. Niall Smith, again, another cricketer who, if you had spoken to me about 2 years ago, I would have said, yep, Niall Smith is on my radar. I think he played in, remember when we had the pandemic and we basically had no domestic cricket. So the only cricket we were using to essentially choose who could play for the West Indies was like these randomly selected best versus best games. Now, Niall Smith got selected in quite a few of those best versus best games during the pandemic. But to all intents and purposes, I would say, and I hope Niall doesn't take this the wrong way, he's fallen off a bit. 2020, I would have said, yep, I think Niall's one worth looking at. But since then, let me just bring up, right. So Niall Smith, let me give you some stats, people. This is where it fell off. I can even show you. 2019-2020, Niall Smith played 7 games for Guyana in the so this was the Red Bull season just before the pandemic. Niall played 7 matches, took 20 wickets at 29, and I remembered watching him in that tournament thinking, he's got a bit about him. Then he went to Super 50 the following year, the pandemic Super 50, and he played 5 matches, 8 wickets at 20. The reason why Niall fell off is the following West Indies domestic season. So last season's one, he played 4 matches for Guyana, 7 wickets at 52. And that's when he fell off. He fell off. And then in the subsequent Super 50, he only played 2 matches. So Niall has gone from showing potential in 2019, 2020, showing real signs of being a good bowler during the Super 50 in 2021. And then he just fell off in last year's Red Bull season, and Guyana didn't really trust him. He had injury woes during the Super 50 last year. And here we are now. And he started this season, hopefully, as he means to go on. 5 wickets, bowling Guyana to victory in the second innings against Jamaica. I watched some of the wickets. I wouldn't say it was vintage bowling, but wickets is wickets at the end of the day, and he's taken 5. So I'm hopeful that maybe this is Niall Smith's comeback after what I would call what do I want to call his last year and a bit. I think his last year and a bit in cricket, I think he's let himself down fitness wise, and that's why I think he fell off in the last year and a bit. So hopefully he's got a bit of the hunger back and he's ready to go again. Listen, people, that was supposed to be a really quick review of round 1 going into round 2. I don't know what I was playing at there. That was much lengthier than I wanted it to be. A couple people messaged me today saying, oh, Machel, you're going to do another live review in day 3 after all Shandapur hit his double century and so on and so forth. I'm not. I'm going to wait for what happens at the end of day 4. I'll do a live tomorrow, so that'll be Tuesday evening. Look out for that, and we can all come together again and chat about West Indies cricket. But here's something to tide you over. Look out for round 2 of the West Indies Domestic Championship starting on Wednesday, the 8th of December. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. Thank you and good night.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rule seems coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.